Now, today we've got a special guest, a true friend, somebody whom is just amazing, an amazing human being, a true hard worker, a true lover of nature. He studied landscape design in Jerusalem, Israel, and then moved to the Comoros Island, where he designed the private estate gardens for the SNIE International. He'll tell us more about that during his talk. Back in South Africa, he opened Fevertree Nursery in Nelspruit. He has designed and constructed gardens in Disney, the United Nations, the Botanical Gardens in Korea, France, Australia, and has won many, many awards. But most important to us here, he has brought back gold from the Chelsea Flower Show, literally for the second time after he took over from David Davidson. We absolutely love and adore Leon. He is an absolute sweetheart, if I may put it like that, bluntly so. Do yourself a favor, if you've joined us on this call, please go and follow Leon on Twitter, literally at Leon Kluge Design. Check out the latest thing that he has to share with us about the beautiful nature that he interacts with on a daily basis. Go and like and follow him on Instagram at Leon Kluge. And while you're at it, go and check him out on Facebook at Leon Kluge. Simple as that. If you want to know more about Leon, just literally Google him. Leon, what a fantastic pleasure. What an honor to have this privilege to introduce you for this morning. Without any waste of time, I'm going to hand over to Leon because of this is why we are here. And to everybody else, I will see you guys on the other side of the call. Leon, over to you, my man.
Thank you, John. That's so nice of you. So it's been an interesting year. It's been a year just about since I gave you a talk, and that was on Chelsea. Little did we know how this year will change, especially for me on the international stage when it comes to flower arranging and show gardens. But most of the show gardens were cancelled or postponed, but some of them still continued. But before the whole saga of COVID happened, I was about to start the show garden in Shenzhen, China. Now, I've been asked by the Chinese government to build them 2 gardens. One is in Shenzhen, which is now the fastest growing city in the world. And they want to create the greenest city in the world, which is a very good direction that China is going. So they're taking inspiration from Singapore and now applying this to Shenzhen. The other show, which we just started this week, is in Shanghai. And this show is the biggest congregation of the green industry of Asia in the world. Now, coming back to the Shenzhen show, it all started January last year. I was asked to fly over and now go and choose all my plants, my materials, and all of those nice stuff that I need to do beforehand before we start all the construction of the garden. And the garden construction was supposed to be, well, end of last year. So I flew over in mid of winter to China. It actually was my first time in China. I've never been. I didn't know what to expect. It was a mind-blowing experience in a lot of ways, not only in a good way, but sometimes also in a bit of a sad way. Arriving in Shanghai, I was taken to all these events. You know, it's in the middle of the icy season, it's snowing everywhere and it's freezing cold. And this is also the area where I'm supposed to choose all my plants, knowing that most of them are dormant at the moment. I quite liked Shanghai in the sense that its technology is amazing. Nobody can deny that. And its attention to gardening is really growing immensely. Yes, there's not a soft touch to gardening. I think we are way more advanced in that sense. Their gardening is still very much Disney orientated, mass plantings of lots of color and then clipped trees and shrubs, which is a narrative that China does want to break. Yes, they do love clean cut of everything. Everything needs to be neat and tidy, but their gardening, they are searching for more influences coming into their gardening world. That is my contractor, Miss Lan. She's a tiny lady, the sweetest lady you've ever met in your life. But this garden that we're creating is a massive construction. And it's not easy for this lady, well, in my eyes, to handle this massive team and to do all of this huge construction that needs to happen. But little did I know that this lady has a very, very strong personality. And whatever needs to happen will happen under the watchful eyes of Miss Lan. So on arrival, we visited lots of nurseries. And every time we visit a nursery, there would be a nice bowl of hot soup. Now, I'm not a fan of soup. I can't stand even the nicest of pumpkin soups or butternut soups. Never have I in my life had soups with fish heads and pieces of squid in it. So it was a good start to my diet that I'm on at the moment. But nevertheless, so we continued. Now from Shanghai is where a bit of a sadness came over me looking at the landscapes. Shanghai, to where we were going to work, or where the main office is for the nursery that's doing all my construction, is about 2.5 hours. And then that 2.5 hour drive, there was zero, absolutely nothing of wild landscapes left. Not one wild plant, although, like in this picture, it looks all natural and green, looks like a panda would hang around. It is not. These are like our eucalyptus forests that we have on the highlands of Mpumalanga. These are bamboo forests, not even an indigenous bamboo to China. These are bamboos that they harvest to build all their floors with and ceilings and all kinds of things. So from afar, like with many countries, it looks green and picturesque. But when you delve a little bit closer, you see that the damage that China has done to its environment is absolutely immense. Now, I have been to quite a few countries in working with nurseries and the green industry, America, the UK, France, Japan, all over. But never in my life have I arrived in the Platteland to a nursery where that building right in front of you is their head office. That is 15 floors of office space for the nursery alone. They don't even grow any of their plants. They import all their plants. So like at Chelsea, we usually next to the clematis nursery. And that clematis nursery provides this nursery with an enormous amount of clematis every year. It's probably the whole budget of clematis goes to this nursery. And the same with hundreds of thousands of other plants. It's just hectares upon hectares upon hectares of plants that's imported as seedlings or even as bigger ones, just potted up nicely and then sold on. And they do that on Alibaba. So all of their plants are just sold on Alibaba. It was astounding, to say the least. It was absolutely astounding how this green industry is so immense in this country. This is the design. Now, this design I did when there was still no COVID in play. That means usually when I do my designs, it is when I know that I'm going to do the construction. I'm going to do the art on the garden. I'm going to do the planting. I'm going to do the painting. most of it, with some help of people, of course. So a lot of my designs are quite difficult, to say the least. And you have to do that on site. You have to take your paintbrush and follow the contours that evolve on site, because everything is not black and white on paper. It can't be, not with a garden. It's not possible. Even with a home garden, people that say they take it exactly to the T as it is on design, I have my very strong disagreement with that opinion, because a garden does need to evolve with how the site evolves. And each site has our own spirit to it. So this design that I gave them was tricky. It was really difficult. And I would not have wished this on my worst enemy. But unfortunately, Miss Lan drew the difficult card. And after COVID happened, she had to do this design on her own. But we'll get to that a little bit later. When I do a design too, we do a model. A model is important because a model gives you scale and it gives you perspective. You can take your eye and you can go through each little corner of this model when it comes to hard structures mainly, and look at it. And then not only look at my plans, which can sometimes be very rough on a sketch. I'm not Picasso. My plans can be, strange to say the least. But now you can visually and 3D also look at the plan and see on scale whether everything fits in. I'm very happy that I did this, because this became very, very important. Not very easy to transport this delicate little model made out of clay and wood all the way to China in one piece. Okay, well, it didn't arrive in one piece, probably 7 pieces, but we managed to put it all together. These are some of the details. So in the background, we have these African walls made out of clay, well, the illusion of clay, in the water with water falling down. Now, just to explain a little bit more about the garden and what it was all about, this show had a theme. It was called, when you translate things from Chinese to English, the translation can sometimes be very strange. And this translation we had was deep love. So I had to make this mold a little bit more gently. So I took the word, because I have to keep it very simple in language so that people can relate over there. So I took the heartbeat of Africa as our theme, because in the end, that is where love would originate. So, and my catchphrase was, it's the crooked wood that is the best sculpture. Now, the heartbeat of Africa is a garden that invites you to experience this unique sensation of African hospitality and being surrounded by natural elements such as grass and wood and water. Now, one feels at peace with only natural elements coming together to wrap its arms around you. I mean, that's why we go for walks. Is nature grounds you and it makes you more at peace. You relax, and that's where Zen also comes from, right? Africa's flair for celebration comes to life in the decorative paintwork which depicts the diversity of life on the African plains. And the diversity of African is so immense. There's so many elements of diversity in Africa. But water is the energy that connects the natural elements and allows a sense of peace and contemplation throughout the garden. And the sound of water falling, which is these little walls in the background, adds to the wildness and reminds you of a peaceful African escape. Now, taking inspiration from African Savanna, grasses become the most important feature. And if anybody thinks about Africa, they think about the savannas, Kenya, Tanzania, Botswana, and parts of South Africa. And that grasslands, the savannas and the big migrations is what people see immediately in their minds abroad. Now, taking inspiration from those savannas, the water too, like water, and flow according and is a gentle force that connects everything. In a world where it's easy to lose our connection with nature, the sound of the heartbeat of Africa is easily pulled together with the power of love. After all, this is love that triumphs over everything, transcending borders, cultures, and language. So that is a story I wanted to portray to the Chinese public that would visit the show. And it is a massive show. We have about 500,000 people that would walk through this garden and experience the story that we want to tell. Planties. Now, as I mentioned before, it is in the middle of winter. Luckily, I haven't pruned everything down, so I still had like a remnant of a leaf and seed somewhere. Grasses was very important, but I don't want just common grass. And I can't get African grass in China. That's just not going to happen. But I need to find grass that resembles a lot of the African species or represent a lot of the African species, like panicums and some other grasses. Now, this was deep winter, and they took me around, and this was my collection that I could choose from, knowing that this would be nice and green when the show would happen. That never happened, though. But it's enormous nurseries. This is now called their Platteland. This is their farmland. As you can see in China, farmland looks very different to our farmland here in South Africa. It's building upon building upon building with neat concrete, plastic, whatever, with plants grown on top of it. So not a bird, not a butterfly. Well, it was winter too, but nothing. Very, very sterile. But a lot of plants to choose from, if that's what you want. Here I am with my stipa. Now, the most grateful thing I had in the mornings in that cold, and it was minus, and it was raining ice, was my coffee, which is what I have now too. I'm a little bit addicted to the coffees. But look at those beautiful sculptures of the dry grass. These are panicums. Now, panicums, this exact species here are North American, but we have our own species here in Southern Africa too. And when they dry out, you get this beautiful skeletons of grass. And the birds just love it because then all the seed are ripe. And that's one of the only nutrients left in the middle of winter, is those skeletons of grass. Here on the left-hand side is stipa. That is a Mexican grass, a very savanna-like color that I could create here for our garden to give that African feel. I want to be different with my plants. I don't want to be the same as all the other gardens. Now, we're represented here with the United States, America, France, New Zealand, Australia. I can't remember all of the other countries, but there's about 20 countries represented here. And I know for a fact that they're going to go green and they're going to go lots of bloomer. And I don't want that. I want, when you walk past our garden, to have it very, very different looking. Not only in color, but also in textures and the hard landscaping. Now, this is where I was taken. So, going to see sunflowers and sallies. Yes, we have some terrific sallies in South Africa, but definitely not these Disneyland varieties. So, and that is where, you know, there's also a difference in the history of gardening with China, which is very young still. Gardening is only starting in China at the moment. And where that textures of plants and colors of plants still is very different to what English gardening is in playing with all of those perennial plants. In China at the moment, still bright color, annuals for that matter, is still very prominent. And I want to break that narrative completely with the garden that we're doing in China. Now, here we go. At least this soup was a little bit better. I quite liked it. These are bamboo shoots. And I know we get them in blikkies here as well, but these fresh ones are actually quite delicious. I just don't like rice. So there we go. Now, these are the markets. Now, in the markets, I need to go and find, they just take me to shops. And I need to go and find the paint, the soil, the colors, the textures, the woods, everything myself. Because only I know what I want, and I can't expect the contractor to know what I want. It's not possible. So they leave me in this massive market or mall or whatever, and I just need to walk around and look, keep my eyes open and look at different textures and colors and things that's available for the construction industry here in China. This is the color I found, which I really loved. So we're going to build these walls that we had in the front and in the back out of just normal bakstenen, but their bakstenen is so amazing. I can pick it up with a pinky and my thumb. So it's so light. But then we'll build it all and clad it with this mud. And this mud effect will give us that true rawness of African design. And we'll put in some elements, organic elements, like a little bit of roots or clippies or some leaves, just to give it an even rawer, almost a cow dung kind of look. Well, not quite cow dung, but you know, that kind of root. Now, this is in the office. So my structure in the middle is a pod, and it's a swirling pod of natural material, because I have this very rustic wall and wild garden, and I want to have the opposite of creating something very modern in a sense, very out there, to bounce off against that natural garden that I'm making. So they were pruning all kinds of sticks in the gardens around the nursery. But this was my favorite. So I went to one of the shops and I found a broom. And this was perfect. I wanted this kind of texture. It doesn't have to be quite exact, but this is what I want. I want it to be fine. I want it to be almost explosive out of this pod that's going to be in the middle, the center of the heartbeat of Africa. Now, what material are we going to get? Because I need a lot of it, and it has to be somehow fastened to this clay twill that I'm going to make. It's not yet a twill. The twill came in a little bit later because of issues. This is what I found, and I brought it with me. It is this. This is miscanthus flowers. So miscanthus grow on the slopes of Mount Fuji in Japan. It's a beautiful grass. We use it. It's in all our garden centers. And when it's in flower, it's got this white, creamy fluff all around it. And that is the perfect texture, but very difficult to handle. So we tried everything, putting it in between fences and putting it in between, glue it, tie it. Nothing seemed to work because it seemed to flop everywhere, and it seemed to just, okay, sorry, we just had people coming in here, sorry. Lucy? Okay, so now this is our structure. And our structure is now trying to get volume, but I don't know how. So sometimes you just need to take a break and you need to let your mind go and just think about what we're going to do. And this is my means of escape. I can't catch a ball at all, not at all. But here I win. And I win almost all the time. So it gets my endorphins running. And usually when you do something like that, take your mind away from a big problem you have on site, something like this would prevail and you would find a solution to that, which is sometimes so easy and right in front of you. So this is a Tesla. Now, it's the first time I've ever driven a Tesla. So if you are a gardener or a nurseryman in China, well, this is kind of what you drive, which is quite nice. I don't think we have this in South Africa at all. But this is the owner. So now he is taking me to go and visit this. So I was asked to do Hello Kitty World. Now, Hello Kitty World is in Wuhan, well, just outside Wuhan on the way. And this was February last year. Perfect timing to have a little holiday in Wuhan. So I've chosen all my plants, I've chosen all my materials. So we're kind of on a good space, we know where to go. So they took me to this site, which is Hello Kitty World, which is apparently very big. I've never heard of, well, I've seen a little image on clothes and all kinds of things, but I've never interacted with Hello Kitty so closely as here. So everything is about this, and they want me to, redesign the gardens in a more soft way and in a less contrived hardscape with just colors and cut balls. It was quite interesting to see. It was really nice. But whilst we were driving, the news started to come out about this virus that we have in the city, and that lockdowns were going to start to happen in Wuhan, and people weren't going to go out. So the decision was taken that I would come back to South Africa, as I do not want to be stuck in Wuhan city. So the night before we left, we quickly went to the market where I can have a little bit of fun, not knowing that this would be the last time I would be in China, even doing all of these gardens. And so the crisis started. The show was also postponed because nobody kind of knew what was going to happen. And it's a very expensive decision to do because everything is already ordered, all the plants are ordered, and that was the same with Chelsea. And I hope Chelsea can recover quickly from that, because a lot of growers needed to grow plants and you do it a year in advance for the show to happen. And then if the show doesn't happen, those plants don't get taken, or the deposit is lost, but the rest is, for nothing. So I think a lot of growers have hesitancy when it comes to international shows now, when it comes to lockdowns, because they've burned their hands quite a lot with this. So the decision was taken that after 6 months, postponement of the show, that the show would still continue, because now China is over their pandemic. It's been down and we're all now right in the midst of it. But as it started, the show, there was a chance that I was going to go in over. So the visas were sorted and by the Chinese government. And then the week before I was supposed to fly to the site where they've already started, as you can see, we as South Africa had our very own special variant of COVID that popped out, meaning that all of that was banned. So no designer across the whole world would be allowed to the show, which was an even playing field for us then anyway. And this is how we started. Now I have to give this project over to Ms. Lan, because she now needs to see into my mind as how we're going to build this garden, which is not easy. Construction started and we're doing the swirls. Now, as you saw with that previous design, it wasn't a swirl in the beginning. I had to make an executive decision because that exact shape we had in the beginning was really tricky, and it's one of those shapes that I have to evolve on site. I'm not going to be there, so I made it a little bit, in a sense, easier construction-wise. So I made the swirl that go through the water, up into the air, and then fade out in between the savanna landscape. There's our big walls at the back. That's going to be that's our backdrop basically. And that's going to have all our designs of the African vibrancy of Africa on that, with the water falling out of the walls. Now, how I saw the site every day was through WeChat and through not WhatsApp, because they don't have WhatsApp, some other app. And then I was walked through it about 3 times a day. And we would walk through the garden with a phone, and I would look at every little thing, and then we would chat about it. Now, Miss Lan does not understand a lot of English, and I clearly don't understand a lot of Chinese. So we had this app that would translate our sentences whilst we talk. And there's a lot of very interesting translations that happened there, which I don't think I can repeat on this show. But so we started. And every day we would walk through it, and we would go through every little thing, how to place the plants, where to make it a bit rounder, and so on and so forth. But it came around. It's a big garden. So we're looking at about 20 times 15 meters, which is almost twice the size of a Chelsea show, our Chelsea show garden. The wood at the back of the walls, where I want the water to fall off, I want it to be a bit more wild. And that was quite a challenge to find, because they want to really present everything as perfectly as possible. But I wanted wood that can channel water that looks as rough as possible, like it's aged, like it's rotten. And at the site, in between the woods, they found this wood, and this was just absolutely perfect on the site. So we're starting, the wood is in, all the clay is starting to form. Now, what I do with my gardens usually, my gardens are very much more organic. I'm not very formal in my garden design, although we do some of those. What I like about the organic part of the gardens, especially for shows, is that there's a tiny scope for being creative, meaning that you can make a little bit of a oopsie. And that oopsie won't look like an oopsie. But if it's straight lines, all mathematically positioned, then an oopsie is a big problem. But here we don't have that. So I have a relative space to make little bloopers. Rain. We had so much rain. We only had 2 weeks to build this garden. Now, 2 weeks is not a lot of time to get everything up and running for the show to open. Everybody has the same budget. Everybody has the same amount of time and the same amount of people working on it. So it's all a very level playing field for all of the countries around the world to present their representation of the country or continent to the Chinese public. And this was now from the top. Here you can see on the left-hand side, I think that was Malaysia, that shape, interesting shape on the side. I never got to see a lot of the other gardens in the end. I still need to find some photos. But here ours is getting on. So we've got the pathway going in, which is also this clay, which will be painted with patterns, going into the centerpiece, which is wrapped around by this pod, and that flows through the water and then go up into the meadows or the savannas on the side, and then our big 3 feature walls with the patterns, and then the water falling into the pond. This is how we marked problems, or questions. It's just by taking photos, marking them with circles. Red means, what is going on here? Green means, looks interesting, can work. Yellow means, I have no idea what this is. Please explain. So we had this color code working together with us in building this garden on the phone or on WeChat. Coming back to my grasses, or the miscanthus grass, which is this. Now, remember that when I selected this grass, it was in winter, it was dormant. So this grass, miscanthus, doesn't have any fluff on. Now the show has changed. Everything is riding on this because this is our main feature in the garden. These grasses are still in flower or in seed. That means that the whole connection of this grass to the structure changes. The whole texture of the structure changes. the whole look of the garden changes just because we have still flowers, although it's dry on the stalks. Now I'm trying to show them on sketches, on little papers, whether I'm in an airport or something, just sketching, see how we want it, how it needs to curve alongside our walls. And then also quickly make little patterns and little designs for everywhere that they need to paint. And this was our painter that was doing all the paint work. What I also did with my painting, because I wasn't going to do the paint myself, is give a bit of flexibility. So I gave them a lot of different patterns and say they can play with them a little bit and see where they would fit in best, because I can't be there all the time to see what will fit in best, because you need a solid color with a more open color, with a more intricate color next. So it's a very delicate balance to get an even tone on the wall. Otherwise it can be too busy, or it can be too, well, not busy. And that is how we spoke. So looking closely, because there's always, even though it's China, there's always Wi-Fi interruptions. I think I just got out of the shower. And this is now looking at my water feature, now first time flowing water. And on this side, very concerned face of where our plants are going to be. Plants is really tricky because, again, our seasons change. I'm not now in spring, I'm now going into autumn. So all the plants are different and their looks are different, the heights are different. So we need to adjust them all clearly. And that is how the seed look like at the moment. So instead of this hard dark brown, we have this fluff. And I had to make the decision, okay, Leon, are we going to go with this fluff? Or are we going to go with a dry? Well, we're going to have to find a different method. So I asked them, okay, let's go through. This looks terrible. I know it looks terrible. And I got such a fright when I saw that. What the hell is happening here? But in the end of the day, I asked them to do all kind of different methods of fastening it to the clay. This is me not knowing what to do. Yes, I had to go and play like a game of the soccer again to get my mind through it. And in between this, also, by the way, whilst we are doing all of this, it's now the last few days of the show. Everything needs to come together in about 3-4 days before judging. I'm also filming Die Groenste Vingers, which is the newest reality show on CakeNet, which will launch later this month. And this takes all your time. So every time I have a minute off set, I run through and then quickly look at my WeChat or something and answer all the questions. And there were lots of questions to be answered, and then run back to site to a set to film the next bit for our TV show. So here you can see, I asked them, fasten these grasses at an angle, fasten them straight, cut them, do them in lines, all kinds of methods. So you can see which one would work the best. Now, whilst we were doing this, it was also raining. And every time she showed me pictures, it was either in sun or it was in rain. And I loved the texture that we got, because in sun, the miscanthus poofed out. It was like a little cloud, almost like sheep wool. And when it was raining, obviously it would go down a little bit, but had these beautiful, interesting textures and colors that developed from it. So I kind of fell in love with this material to use for the structure, and I gave the go ahead to go on and just cover this whole thing with basically sheep wool in the end. So here they are fastening all of this clay with this miscanthus. I don't think this has ever been used on a structure like this again. So this is the fluff that you get. Now, remember, with a show garden, yes, it's a garden. It needs to be practical in a sense, but it's also a show garden. That means that show means it needs to think a little bit out of the box in certain areas, right? Because you want the public to look at the garden and say, what is this? this is so strange, this is weird. Because usually at shows, when it comes to People's Choice and all of those kind of awards, they time people that is looking at the show and see how long you can keep the people enthralled in looking at your garden. And so they measure all the gardens to see how long people look at gardens. So different textures, oddities do work in these spaces. This is a more contemporary way of doing a thatch roof. Here we are again, busy painting inside. Here we have all the water falling, and then also the grass falling from the outside over. Planting is going to happen now. So I have a few trees. Remember, I tried to go for African plants. There was hardly any to choose from. It gets very cold here. So a lot of our South African plants, a lot of it, do not grow in this environment. Minus 25 just won't do it for most of our plants. But I have Tulbachia here. I chose grasses that would give us that effect of the African landscape. There's some strelitzias, oddly enough, because I use it as indoor plants. And then my trees were willows. There we go, words, willows. Probably need a coffee. A surprising plant that I did not ask for was a Rebecchias that you can see here, which look like echinacea, these pink flowers in there. And she did it as a surprise for me. And it actually worked quite beautifully because it did give just a little shot of color through, a different texture that pops out through the landscape. Yes, it's not very African, but we do have a lot of plants that can give you that same effect. So that was I loved her little innovation that she did there in the garden. It was really pretty. Now this is getting very close to the end of construction. Here we go, euphorbias. Now South African euphorbias, almost not achievable to get there. There's some terucalis, but they were so small. I had a few in the gardens. So I went for the Indian alternative, which is this euphorbia, I think it's trigona. And we use some of those ones in the landscape. Here we are again, trying to do the last planting. So I'm here on my phone all the time. Look, okay, let's move this here, let's move that there. And it's so frustrating because you just want to get your hands dirty. And I feel so bad asking people, no, move this there, because usually I just change things around. And so I had to be really, just let it go and just ask what I wanted it to happen. Also furniture. Now, your pod needs to be furnished. It needs to be a livable space where people can sit and contemplate in the garden and look at all the paintwork and garden, get the whole feel of it. That was quite interesting to do because all I had to do was go on Alibaba and just copy and paste some pictures of furniture and cushions and baskets and wooden tables. Everything was available and was delivered right the next day on site. It's just absolutely mind-boggling. I've never had that before. Usually you go for days and days to search for the right cushion or something in a show garden. Then night, because this show is also at night. So our lighting needs to be perfect. And that is where that fluff of the miscanthus also came to shine, because it created this most beautiful texture at night, which I really loved. Everything was warm lighting, but in the water, we kept it to a nice cold lighting. That is my team at the end. Not a lot of people in the team at all, creating this beautiful scape that is very difficult to have made. So very, very proud of them. And they did an amazing, amazing, amazing job. Here are some other photos of the garden now finished. The walls in the water setting. I think there's even fish inside. I don't know why they did that, but in China, they put fish everywhere. And this is the idea, well, the look of the fluff that we had. So very contemporary. Remember, it's not traditional gardening. It's a show garden. It's a runway show for our things. And then whilst I was filming the Groenste Vangers, and I got this phone call to say that we won the Grand Gold Award at the China show, which was, I think, something to be very proud of, for not only for the team, but for us here in South Africa too, as it's the first time South Africa has ever won a gardening or floral installation show in China. And it is their biggest show. So that was quite something to have. And there's some other pickies to have. So it was a big celebration, a virtual celebration, which is not as great as having a biertjie with some other people. But here's some of the daytime photos. So it's a completely different feel from daytime to nighttime. It's a different garden altogether. And that is why when they do these shows, you get a nighttime ticket and a daytime ticket to go and experience the show both ways. There's our walls. Inside, a lot of plants in the show, my goodness. And the show runs for about a month. I think a bit less than a month. And it's in a big national park. That's our little thing. They used another name. Well, anyway. And now this is the one we are busy with now. So we're doing that big one in Shanghai, which is in Disney World. On this photo you can't see the Disney World Palace, but it's right there. And this is the show. So we're creating these very strange mountains out of sand, but this is a very tricky one. And I was supposed to be at this one, and now I'm not here either. So I'm very stressed about this garden. So I think Miss Lan as well, she's doing this one too. So that is the end of the talk.
Leon, I don't know. I don't know where you want me to start. I think you've taken us on an amazing journey. I'm just lost for words. I think it's Mark Anthony who sums this up best. He says, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I think that that quote is a summary of what you've just presented to us. Firstly, I don't know where you find the time. Secondly, I don't know how you do it, but maybe for the sake of everybody that's on the call now, just to remind everybody, please leave your comment and please post your question on the Q&A so that we can ask Leon a few questions before we let him go. But just to open it up, let me start off by saying congratulations. You absolutely deserve it. You're an amazing artist. You are an amazing human being. But firstly, let me perhaps ask you this question. I think COVID-19 has brought some really big difficulties for everyone. As a project manager and as a designer, how did you find working in this virtual space and creating such an amazing creation that you did in China?
If you have a good team, it is great. And if you have a team that kind of understands a little bit of your thinking, Miss Lan was great because she did research me a lot. So she knows my style. She knows kind of what I think in a sense. But it's not that much fun. I mean, it's like giving you a painting to somebody and says, "No, paint my painting." It can feel a little bit empty at times. So I hope it doesn't last forever, because it's for an artist to give your artistic to have your sculpture made not by you it's tricky.
Sure, and perhaps maybe as another quick question before I move on to the Q&A, how have you personally coped with the stress and possibly the anxiety of designing such a piece miles away from the actual exhibition space itself. Have you, because of it, you make it seem so easy. So just take us through just your emotions and how you came about, you know, just to successfully completing the project.
So I think the most important thing is just to just try and be calm, because a lot of artists, we get stressed about little things, because, you know, a little thing in an art piece, a little thing becomes bigger and bigger and changes the whole outcome at the end. But I had to also give leeway to my team, because it's also their project too. Now, they also put in a lot into building this. So you don't want to, if there's, how can I say, if they bring something to the front, I also need to be open to that, like with some of the flowers or even some of the colors that we changed around the garden, and not be too, no, this is how we're going to do it, or we're not going to do it. You can't do that, because you want it to be a family flow into creating this ultimate structure. And if you go only your way, then I think there'll be lost of interest on the other side. You want them to also like, wow, I've added something in this garden too. So that was something new in my mind, for also to accept, is that, Leon, your thing is not set in stone. You need to adapt, and people are also going to contribute to the sculpture and garden that you're going to do. And in the end of the day, I think that will work out better, because I'm not there. I can't see everything, you know, and miscommunication between English and Chinese, whew, that's, yes, a lot of miscommunication can happen. So, but in the end, I think that helped us a lot.
Wow. Sure. I think a lot of just comments coming in from Lucille. Lucille was just asking us, you know, if this has been recorded and where to find this recording of this amazing presentation. Lucille, this presentation has been recorded and it's been currently shared on Facebook on the Straight Nature page, as well as the Kirstenbosch page. So please go on ahead, like those pages, and while you edit, Google, actually search for Leon Kluge and like his page too, because he's got amazing content there. Anita Rock saying, oh, thank you everybody. What a wonderful presentation. And just a lot of just, you know, just, I think everybody's just amazed by the level of quality of work that you produce, Leon. Nathan says, this was an amazing talk and a remarkable achievement considering the difficulty in communication. Leon's passion and innovative approach to landscaping are indeed laudable. Many thanks for introducing South African garden design to the Asian world. I couldn't have said it better myself. Nathan, I think that's just an amazing thing. Just to remind everybody that you know, stay on for just a few seconds. We will also be redirecting everybody to the show's previews, Leon's latest show, Plant Safari on DSTV and the Weather Channel. Leon, while I'm at this, can you just tell us a little bit? So you've got another show coming up. Is it also in China? I think you've mentioned something similar.
Yeah, so we're busy with Shanghai, so it's at Disney World, where we have a big show, which is also the world competing for the big prize. And then we're going to move to Singapore, but we did France, Chaumont-sur-Loire, which we also did during lockdown, and that one is permanent garden at Chaumont, which is a big castle in France. So those are the ones, and then yeah, hopefully Chelsea will happen again next year. We keep thumbs for that one. Let's see, it's high time.
Most definitely. And Leon, how can everybody get to view all of these shows? Do you have anything in one package where everybody can just see all the different designs that you do all over the world?
I think it's best to just follow Leon Kluge on Facebook or Leon Kluge on Instagram, and I'll post everything that we do on there. Some gardens we're only allowed to post after it's done or even after the show. So just be patient, but it will be on there. If not on Google by the shows themselves.
Awesome. Just last question, and then I know I've asked this and I'm asking it again. How do you come up with all these amazing designs? What inspires you?
I still say it's the same thing as I go and walk into the mountains, and little interesting pictures that I take. It might just be an odd rock or odd stick with a rock and a plant, and that gives you an idea for a design that you can do. So it's just merging with nature when it comes to design, because honestly, she does have the best design ideas.
Awesome. Leon, I'm not going to keep you any longer. I think everything else that's coming up on the chat and on the Q&A is just words of appreciation of the wonderful work that you're doing. I want to take this opportunity for flying the South African flag high, for making us so proud. I can't begin to tell you how super proud we are of the work that you do. You are a true blessing and a son of the soil of this beautiful nation. And we will continue to celebrate the work that you do. We will continue to support you in everything that you do. For everybody that's still on the call, you know, we wrap up the show literally at 11:30. I want to take this opportunity to encourage everybody to go and like Leon Kluge's Facebook page, so you can get the latest and the greatest of some of the beautiful work that he's doing. Go on ahead and follow him on Instagram at Leon Kluge. Follow him on Twitter. We want to see more action from you on Twitter at Leon Kluge Design.
Yeah,
so with that said, thank you so much. We are proud of you. We look forward to seeing you again at Kirstenbosch, and hopefully as things, you know, get better, we will also start working on the Chelsea Flower Show. So from me and from everybody else, thank you so much, my friend. You are an amazing talent. This country is absolutely lucky to have somebody like you. So keep up the good work, keep on flying the South African flag high. And yeah, we hope to catch up with you soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Awesome stuff. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's Leon Kluge wrapping up this wonderful Wednesday talk. We will see you again in the next 2 weeks when we introduce another fabulous speaker on this amazing platform. To Belinda and Kathy Abbott and all the team that are working behind the scene to making all these shows possible, thank you very much for all the work that you do. It's been a blast. It's been amazing. I'm just blown away. So see you guys next time.